tonight's event, we're going to be talking to Anthony Sturmas, who creates storyboards and artwork for graphic novels and a wide variety of other purposes. And the reason that I wanted to do this particular event is that if you're going to be shooting a film, chances are good that you're going to want to get storyboards for at least some of the scenes, particularly if there are any action scenes. And the reason is that they help reduce the amount of time that it takes you to set up shots because you can easily hand the storyboard to the DP or to the lighting professionals, and they can go ahead and make the scene look like you created it in the picture. It also allows you to ensure that you have sort of thoroughly thought out what the scene is going to look like, and you figured out what the key moments are that need to get captured. So that's something that's sort of impossible to do on the fly. So, and every minute that you save on set is literally saving thousands of dollars. So good storyboards can save a huge quantity of time and money for people. The other thing is that a lot of people who are producing films would do well to decide to produce a graphic novel, posters and other artwork, because it allows them to generate revenue, not just from the film ticket sales, which have to go through distributors and so forth, but also directly from the book or directly from the posters. So Anthony, do you want to talk for a few minutes about how you decided to become a storyboard, work in storyboards and work in graphic design?
Yeah, really, I never thought I was going to get into film, because originally I was like into illustrations and graffiti art in the early 80s, and never once did I think I was going to get into film. I was just kind of, I thought, you know, the Flintstones was cool, and I was like, okay, I didn't know I was going to get into it. I went to Art Center soon after I graduated high school, and it was really cool because it was a really different take on illustration. And that helped me, because when you ink or when you draw out or when you illustrate, it really shows the emotion in the drawings. You can draw, but if you don't know how to really ink or to show that dynamic in the drawing, it's stale. So that really helped me out a lot. Then I took 10 years off, didn't go to college, didn't do anything, and I just went knocking on doors, trying to get, self-taught, and then so I went and applied at the Art Institute, got into multimedia and animation, and it was really cool. I really dug it, from the aspects of storytelling, Maya, 3D Max, all the elements that you need to know to make a film. And just learning all those three elements, you have a keen eye. So when you're talking to different directors, if you're talking to animation or commercials, you have a full idea. The basic concept of it is a script, a shot list, and the characters. Out of those three things, everything else is pretty much, it's universal. It's the same thing.
And can you talk to me a little about what makes a good relationship with a filmmaker, between a filmmaker and a storyboard artist?
It's a really good question, Nancy, because you know as well as I know, in LA, it's really difficult to get into that circle, because when you're dealing with directors or producers, it's hard to find artists that are able to keep a deadline and able to accomplish the artwork in a professional manner and have that artwork at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I was able to build, once I graduated AI Art Institute, I was able to get into that discipline. You'll get blacklisted if you don't accomplish this. They're dependent on you. So I was able to accomplish that and finish that and build that reputation, where now it's kind of cool. Now I'm getting really big directors that are contacting me, and it's really a nice compliment because the word gets around. It's kind of like once you get in that little circle in Hollywood, it's cool because now it's like you got the A finger, you got the A plus. This guy he'll do the work. If it's on time. If you need him on set, he's there. And there's very few. There's a lot of talented artists, but there's very few that are able to keep that professional, to keep the deadline, and to do really good work. And I've had horror stories where directors call me last minute because the artist bailed out on me, and I got to go ahead and clean it up.
Right. And one of the things that you'd mentioned to me is the fact that not every director really understands and how to work with you, either in advance of a project or on set. So there's also skills that directors need in order to be, directors and producers need in order to be able to work with you, in order to make it so that it's, you can figure out what it is what they're seeing in their head, so you can get it onto the paper.
Right. And believe it or not, most of them, I get a lot of directors, I would say majority of them never worked with a storyboard artist. So I try to really make it kind of comfortable and easy for them because they've got already enough going on. So I usually tell them, give me a shot list. And a shot list, now let's just say hypothetically they're doing, this can apply to feature films or commercials or even a pitch. I'll say, listen, send over a page or two of what you want shot. Okay. I'm like, first, try to figure out of those 2 pages, what is the most important that you want shot? Because those are, you don't want to shoot B-roll and storyboard that out, because that's just kind of a waste of time. You want to be able to go ahead and storyboard something that's like, okay, when we're on set, this is what we're looking at. These are the storyboards. This is the highlights of the whole film. And I'll say, give me a shot list of that and some doodles, and it can be almost chicken scratch, just so I understand visually, okay, so this is how he sees it. And they can even be Google pictures. You can go on Google and say, like, I like how the sunset is, and this is where the UFO comes from, or, from the horizon. I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. The light's coming from here, and then we got the explosion in the middle of the ocean, and Godzilla comes in and saves the day. Okay, I get it.
Mm-hmm. So it's not the case that do you actually, if you're working with a director and you're storyboarding a project, do you in advance of production, do you read through this? They send you over the screenplay, and do you read through it and you take a look so you can actually get a sense of what the important moments are, so that you have a sort of a working knowledge of the screenplay before you start talking to them?
Absolutely, Nancy. I think that's really essential before anything. I'll usually ask the director, hey, send me over that script so I can get a full understanding of, when we connect either on Skype or phone or whatnot, I understand what we're talking about, because it's really important to understand the background of this film, whether it's in 1940 or if it's in the future. You want to bring the aesthetics of, okay, so the backgrounds in these storyboards are going to be really how they need to be developed to be able to shoot this love scene where they're kissing and background. I have to really understand that, because most of the time, if you don't take the time into research of this 1940 film that they're shooting, okay, there's tanks, there's uniforms, all these things are really key elements when you're talking to the director, because that takes place in these boards, and that's really, really important. The backgrounds, the time, and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
You work with people before production. So a director brings you a project even before he's got funding sometimes, but especially if he does have funding. And he says, okay, these are the scenes that I want to storyboard, or I want to sort of storyboard the whole thing. And at that time, and he may even have some of the panels that he wants you to actually work on that show the environments that they're trying to create. And the reason is because as a production designer, he needs a way to communicate even to the production designers and to the guys who are creating the sets what the spaces look like. And he needs to be able to work from pure imagination, as opposed to having to describe, well, that's that I want this lamp. He doesn't want to have to go. He wants to be able to just to have somebody. He wants to be able to hand a picture so he can go off and work on other things, instead of having to say, I want this kind of lamp, and I want, he doesn't want to have to make a billion little choices. He wants to be able to hand over a picture and say, like this, so that people get that sense quickly. And I hadn't realized that that's one of the things that people use storyboards for. It's not just to document the action, and not just to show pictures, sort of sketches of the characters, but also to sort of define the environments.
Yeah, there was, I just recently finished a feature. It'll come out next year. And it was really cool because working with professional directors, and I'm not saying, none of them don't know what they're doing, but this guy really had everything in order. He had sent me location shots of where actually they're filming. That was huge, gigantic difference, because now I have the actual place where they're going to be filming, which is in Malibu.
Mhm.
I have the costumes of what this villain's going to wear, and I have the costume of what the girl. So it was really all laid out for me, and it made my job easier because now him and I can connect when we connect on Skype. Like, okay, so and go to location shot 3. That's when we're going to do an aerial view with the drone, and we're going to zoom in where the girl dies. And okay, I got it. You
Mhm.
know, it's really cool when you're talking about different angles and different shots because we're speaking the same language as far as when we have a visual and we're communicating, because it's really hard nowadays to like, oh, you know what, I got this shot in my head, and it's like when you got a location shot, it's like it's just so much easier. It's like, okay, now I get it. You know, now this is where this little diameter, this is where everything's happening, rather than just kind of winging it and looking through Google and trying to match that. Now we have the exact shots.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense. Now, the other thing that you mentioned is that one of the most common things that people work with you to do is to get to handle action shots and stunt shots. And the reason is because, you know, if we all think about like E.T., when at the end of the story, when the bike, you know, ran off the end of the cliff and E.T. was sitting in the basket, and all of a sudden the kid could fly. The important thing about there was a key moment in that. And that's what you would have been storyboarding, and that's
Yes.
what you would have wanted the artist. That would be what Spielberg wanted the DP and everybody else to get. This particular moment, everything,
Right.
and then creating the entire scene so they could get to the point where they got that moment.
Right. And you know, Nancy, sometimes just that scene, it depends on the director on his budget. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can work with a really good budget and you're able to do 120 boards for just that one scene because he's got the budget to do it, and he's got, you know, and he wants to really play the scene out to shot by shot. Or you have a budget that's got, you know, which is mostly a fair budget. And then I'm like, okay, so we can probably do 10, maybe 15 shots on that one scene, but really narrow it down because you're not going to have all these in between keyframes. It's going to be really, okay, so you're going to have the anticipation, what's going on here, you know, the action of what's going on, which is going to take majority of it, and the aftermath, which is kind of like, you know, 3-4 frames. It's like, okay, so here it is. Now, on that note, Nancy, you can have, okay, the director say, well, I want these really grainy, just gestures, you know, just really quick, just showing, you know, no color, just black and white. And I'm like, okay. And then you have other directors I want these really polished, coloring, lighting, you know, little shadows and all that. And those take a bit longer because now you're painting each storyboard. It's almost like the color palette of that one scene. It can go from different hues to blues, you know, because of the moon and all that, because they want to be really specific to these producers exactly how these scenes are going to be. That's their money. That's the money machine right there. That'll give them more funding for the film.
Right. And when you're taking, and I think the other thing you mentioned is like if you're choreographing a scene that has like stunts, like the one they just did recently, or any James Bond film, where there's multiple people involved in a fight, or there's multiple, like then it becomes important because obviously these people really aren't going to fight. So
right.
You really have, it's choreography. So you need to figure out what the key moments are for them to move through, because the stunt guy is going to have to get those, basically work to help you get those shots.
Right. And usually when when that does happen, especially a fight scene, that's actually really a good point. I'll do my research to look at different movies that have had fight scenes, so I can look at different camera angles. Because it's my part as a storyboard artist to do the research. Because the director's coming to me to say, hey, I need this. It's not his job to go ahead and do my job. You know what I mean? He's coming to me to put this scene together. So I'll do my research, and what I'll do is I'll look at 3 or 4 different films. It can range from, like, let's just say, you know, Rambo. I don't know, a fight scene there, and then one other scene in, you know, James Bond, and then just kind of putting those all together in little thumbnails. You know, and then I'll get online with the director on Skype, and I'll show him in my sketchbook, like, hey, here are some ideas I think are really cool. The dynamic of shooting this, because you really want to express, you know, hey, this is a really cool fight scene. You really want to go out of the bounds to make sure it looks cool. You know what I mean?
Well, especially it depends if you're talking about, you know, if you're talking about fencing swords versus kendo swords versus
Right.
a short blade versus people that are hitting each other with batons versus
Or
people
dragon.
yeah,
or dragons in the picture.
right. I mean, it's like it doesn't really matter what if you're trying to make it so that you get the emblematic moments captured, and so your work is actually used by the fight choreographers and the stunt
Right.
folks.
Right.
You're communicating not just appearance but motion.
Yeah.
And
usually with that, Nancy, when they're doing that scene or that special effects, 99% of the times I'll be on set because I'm going to help that other person do her job or his job, how I see fit, how they shot. So it's kind of like, and it's very rare I'll be on set to work on a film, but 90% of the times when it has to do with special effects, yeah, because you're going to be there with the whole team and explain how you see that shot.
right. And then I think also the advantage to having you on set is it's easier to move you around. It's easier to have you move things around on the paper than it is to have people rewire the whole set.
Yeah.
You also do comic books and graphic novels. But can you talk for a few minutes about if somebody were to give you like a 90 to 100 page screenplay, do you have a sense for how many pages that might turn into as a graphic novel, and how long it would take you normally to do sort of a first draft to do such a screenplay and turn it into a graphic novel?
That's a really good question, Nancy. I would probably say if there's anybody who has a screenplay, wants to turn into a comic book or even to a graphic novel, is to really look at how the pages are done and the story, because it's really condensed, a lot more shorter, visually telling. You know what I mean? Because if you're going to do a graphic novel, okay, normally it's about maybe 40 to 48 pages. Okay, so you got 48 pages to condense your screenplay into this, unless you have a series of different books, like let's just say for Lord of the Rings. But I would really suggest that you would because you got cliffhangers in comic books. So it's like, okay, the suspense. Okay, so what's going to be next week? You know what I mean? So you have to think of that. You got to think how the shot's going to look in the graphic novel. Is it going to be a full bleed, or is this scene, in one or two panels? There's a language when you're doing comic books and graphic novel that you have to visually go the extra mile to really shoot that, because you're not using video. It's all ink, all painted. So it's a lot more exaggerated in these pages to be able to shoot those different scenes.
Right. So would you say that most screenplays could be turned into a 45 to 48 page or 50 page graphic novel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. Because you would me. Well, let's say if I have the writer to come to me and ask me, hey, I got a screenplay and I'd like to turn this into a graphic novel. Well, the first job I would do is read it and then condense it to be able to fit that format into a graphic novel, and then sit with the writer and say, okay, this is what I think the opening scene and in the middle, we can condense it a lot more to make that happen.
So in a sense, you'd be working through, you and the author would be working together to create the shot list that would go into the.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Cool. And then now the other question I was going to ask, and you know more about the format than most people, is it the case that most graphic novels these days are full color, or there's some black and white and some full color?
Yeah, it depends on the client or the writer, what budget. If he's got a really comfortable budget, then color. You know what I mean? But you know what? I'm going to take that back, actually, because black and white nowadays is pretty dramatic. You could do some really cool noir effects. You know what I mean? Film noir effects where it's like it's shadows. You got some really, and you can have the red, the blood. Like McFarlane used to do in the earlier days. But color is cool also, but it's a very, very fine line, because if it doesn't look right in color, it looks kind of weird. You could tell the clouds look weird. That looks composited. Yes. Yeah, it looks kind of, yeah. Black and white's cool because I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, man. I would probably do a black and white graphic novel, and then the cover just do full color. So when they look at it, wow, this is really, really cool.
Well, and it's funny you should mention it because that's actually something that I just went looking at graphic novels this last week because I wanted to see sort of what the different styles were, because it does seem to me like a 100-page screenplay, if it's a good screenplay, particularly something horror related, it's likely to make a good graphic novel. And I went looking, and it's amazing because there's a lot of them that are all full color on the inside, but I found myself thinking I think I would like a good black and white one, high contrast black and white one better. There's manga, there's like manga novels, but those are kind of Japanese.
Right.
Which is something that people don't realize, that there's different kinds. Like anime is not manga, is not graphic novel. There's like those are different things. If there's different as, you know, detective fiction, romance fiction, and science fiction.
Right.
So you have to go. So if somebody wanted to work with you on that basis, would they bring you a series of comic books they like and tell you what they like about them?
Yeah. Actually, the graphic novel that I'm working on now, I can't give too much details. That was the first thing that I told him. I said, let's go to the comic store, the one in Hollywood, the Golden, I forgot the name of it. Anyways, we went there. It was really cool. I said, look, let's look at the different styles. Let's look at different covers. And sometimes the covers can be deceptive, because when you look at the covers, like, oh, this is really cool. When you look inside, it's like, oh, what is this, man? This is really bad. You know, it's like I was hoping to get this kind of quality on the cover inside.
Mm-hmm.
But we were able to pick out 2 books, and just based on those 2 books, I was able to, okay, this is somewhat my style, so I can adapt to this. I understand. And it was really cool because now, you know, him and I were able to go ahead and connect on the same level of, as far as what it's going to look like, what the tone is going to be, and without sitting there and just getting frustrated because he doesn't know what he wants. So it's cool to go to the comic book store and just kind of look at different stuff. I'm like, okay, this is more what I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, got it. I understand it. You know what I mean? And from there, we're able to sit down and then talk about the first page, talk about the second page, and then just start getting the ball rolling.
Right. And just out of curiosity, so do you think on the one that you're working on for that guy, is it taking, and you have other clients as well, but does it usually take about a month working full time, or or is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or how, I mean, do you have any sense of how long things take?
To complete a graphic novel?
Yeah, based upon a screenplay specifically.
In a dreamland world, if I didn't have any clients and I just had that one, probably 2 months and a half.
2 months and 2.5 months, cool.
Yeah, if I have other gigs at the same time, you could be looking at about a year.
Then there's the notion of an illustrated book, which is like a book, but it's got illustrations inside, sort of like the old-fashioned Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys type thing.
Right.
So it's got sort of signature art, but it's not, but it's not a full rendition. And then there's also kids' books, which are like you know, the kind that you everybody reads to their 4-year-olds.
Right.
So you'd create artwork for across all of those kinds of books, correct?
Yeah. Children's books are a little bit more different because it's got to be very soft because you're dealing with children, and there's a lot of clients that with the clients that I've worked with, you have to be very careful on how you color and how you shape it, because one stroke of a sharp line could be like, oh, this bumblebee, it looks a bit angry, how you inked it. You know what I mean? So you got to be really careful on that. With graphic novels, if it's just a let loose, because they're dealing with adults and they want cool stuff. Children's books is a very fine line because it's got to be soft and cuddly. You know, you can't put in dark.
No, it's totally, you laugh. I mean, it's funny you should mention
psychologically, really.
My kids had books. My kids had books that would make them cry.
Right. Like, I mean, look at Sleepy Hollow. I mean, today, I mean, when I saw Sleepy Hollow, I was freaked out, man. Right. You know, and it traumatized me, believe it or not, because I saw it's like, wow, this is crazy, man. This is and we're talking like 8, 9 years old. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's crazy.
Yeah, those.
Yeah.
No, you laugh. No, but I even you're about to say nowadays. But I'm saying, like, my kids when they were little, they like something like Sleepy Hollow, or what used to do us in actually was the Greek fables. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine when you're talking about Aesop and the rabbits and the wolves, whatever, right?
Right.
But stay away from stay away from the gods because
Right.
they're not nice people.
Right.
They're always
Right.
killing people. You
Right.
know?
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
And also that I remember the books when we were little, you know, you would have like the troll under the bridge or something like, and I mean, it was kind of
And
meant
that
to
was
be
creepy.
scary.
That was
Yeah,
creepy too.
and it was meant to be scary, but that's not what it is today. That's
No.
not going to sell at all. I mean,
No.
you could sell that to adults, actually. You could
No.
sell them the scary book.
And you know what, Nancy? When people when I get clients that want a children's book and they'll go to my website like, "Oh, your stuff is pretty dark." I'm like, "Well, that's not 99% of my work. I'm just putting it there because people get off on that. They like seeing that stuff, and it's like it's cool. Now, if you want cute and cuddly, I'd be more than happy to send those samples." So it's kind of like almost a judgment before you're talking, and it's just like, wait, ask me, and I'll be happy to send you the teddy bears, and I'll be happy to send you these cute and cuddly things. But right now, when I'm dealing with directors that are dealing action, film, and all that, that's what they want to see. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah, it's an interest. Yeah, I have the same problem when people want me to write business stuff. It's like they see stuff that I've written that's screenplay oriented, and I'm like, okay, listen,
right.
that's different. Okay,
Right.
like,
Right. That's not my work. Okay. I mean, barely you heard about me, and ask about me, and I'll be happy to send you those cute and cuddly things.
Yeah.
But the bread and butter is my concept art, my graphic novels, which is vampires, which are assassins, which are, well, I don't want my 6-year-old to see that, like, well, I don't have that up.
I won't send you that if you want to write about the sleepy caterpillar. Okay, just send me your sleepy caterpillar story.
Right.
Cool. And when you're working on illustrated books or graphic novels, then what you would do is the author would work with you to define what each panel that they need for the book would be, and then you'd give them the artwork, and they could hand it to their layout guy to stick it into the book. Correct? Or,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. 90% of the grunt work as I'm in is just developing, the color palette, the tones, and how it's going to look. And then once that's done, I hand it over.
I want to take a few minutes.
One more. I just want to show you something real quick.
Oh yeah, actually, you were gonna share some of your artwork. I forgot.
Yeah. Here we go.
There we go.
Okay. First, I'm going to show you the storyboard.
Okay.
Okay. So a director will come to me and say, "Look, I got a commercial. It's due tomorrow." I'm like, okay, all right, what do you got? And he'll send me over a shop list and basically what it is, and I'm like, okay, got it. And then I'll go ahead and put it together. This is normally what my storyboard format looks like. And then here on the right is where usually the directors will go ahead and write whatever they need to do. But this is usually what they'll get once they hire me. Once this is done, and you notice it's very cut. You got the dog on the porch, the dog's in the mailbox, he sees like this envelope, he gets the envelope, he runs off, and then he gives it to the dog owner, which is in red. And here's the video. It's short.
Yeah, so they basically took exactly your keyframes.
Right, and usually John Doe won't know what they're talking about until they see it visually. Once you see it visually, then John Doe say, "Yeah, okay, you're approved. Let's go ahead and shoot this." So storyboards are huge to sell the idea for the director.
Right.
Let me show you something else.
Cool. That's horrifying. That's pretty.
Yeah, that's actually something I'm working on tonight, so I'll be up all night tonight.
All right, cool.
These are high-end storyboards.
Wow.
This is a little bit more than your normal storyboards. What are these storyboards for? Pitch into a producer, or putting together a digital pitch, where you got video of the guy talking about it, and then you have these certain boards in the scenes, the climax, you know what I mean? Then you have the grainy, which is your normal black and, a few colors here and there. These are really simple to put together. These are more of grainy boards. They're very simple. I'm going to show you another one. These are boards are more of for film. Black and white, dynamics. You see the motion in the shots.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I got a lot of cool stuff here, Nancy. Here's another one. This is for a pitch deck also. Black and white.
That's very cool.
You know, he's shooting at the zombies on top of a bus.
That's very cool.
You know, you got the helicopters, you got the, you know, the policemen and all that. Oh, okay, the producer gets it. He understands it. Okay, so how are the zombies? I'm just giving you an example. So what do the zombies look like? Well, you know what? Here's some concept pieces. Oh, okay, got it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so you have 3 different types of concept pieces here that the producer can look at and say, oh, okay, now I get how, now I understand it. You know, the zombies walk around with no heart, you know, or whatever. I don't know. Because you really have to visually show them what you're talking about. Here's one that I finished, which is actually pretty cool.
Wow.
You know,
and this is the kind of thing you might give to a production designer, because they've got to get all of these elements in place.
Right.
They've actually got to create the screen that's going to go up next to the robot's arms, the heart rate thingamajiggy, the big monitor. They've got to create this shape, all of these shapes to be able to do this, so you can shoot this.
Right. Yeah, and that's where the because then that's where I've done 90% of the work. Here's another one where for the set designer, this was actually an asteroid hitting the Earth, and this guy's the only person that survived. So you gotta, you know, make the background really, you know, the buildings all, you know, are dismantled. You know, it's complete destruction.
Right, and the thing is that they would be using this in order to create the digital backgrounds that they'd be shooting. I mean, he's probably on green screen, but they'd be shooting digital backgrounds.
Yeah, the only thing that might be is maybe the Hummer. So the Hummer may, you know, drive off and through this little alleyway. You know what I mean? Maybe these bricks will be actually really bricks, but 90% of all the other stuff is probably just on green screen. You can composite the clouds and put flames, you know, and fire and all that stuff. But it gives the production guy a general idea what this is going to be.
Right.
This is kind of cool too. These are concept environments.
Wow, that's pretty. That's amazing, man.
Thank you. It gives them like, hey, it's vampire country. Oh, really? So how does the cemetery look? I have no idea how to shoot that. Oh, okay. Well, here's this.
And it's enough detail to be able to give people sort of the shapes, but not enough to force them to make specific creative decisions in terms of what the statue, you know, what statues or gravestones look like.
Right. And here's another high-end concept storyboard. For example, Black Hawk Down. This is just my interpretation for a director I did. It was just a fight scene. You know, what I did is I researched Black Hawk Down, you know, and just kind of took different scenes, and actually spoke with a few soldiers. How is that scene? Is it chaotic? What's going on? You know, is there dust? Is there, you know, and just putting that piece together, because it's a little bit more. It's a storyboard. It's a storyboard on steroids, because you've got lighting, you've got color, you've got action. It's not your normal black and white. It's got all the bells and whistles in the storyboard.
Because of shadows as well as geometry.
Right. And there's one more.
Well, and also don't forget to show us the graphic novel work too.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you for reminding me. These are only 2 pages I can show you, okay?
Okay.
But this is 70% done. These are the panels laid out. Generally, the idea, once I show him this, we can go ahead and sit where the typesetting is going to go, what panels we can take out. Do we need to change any colors? Do we need to go ahead and emphasize more on the backgrounds of this fight scene that's going to go on?
Very cool.
Here's another one.
Is this one more fully finished?
I would say 80%, almost. These are old. This is from the beginning.
It's really pretty.
But this is just when I talk to the writer, I'll say, look, here's what I got, and this is how I see visually fit this one page will look like. I'm like, well, wow, that's kind of cool how you drew the guy smoking a cigarette on the left, and how it just drops down, and then you got the other 3. Why did you do that? Well, because it's easy. Your eye is going to read that very easy. You know what I mean? Panels, you got to be really careful not to lose the reader, because if you do panels crazy, they're not going to know what part to read. So it's got to be visually stimulating. At the same time, the format's got to also be legible. You know
right.
what I mean?
So people can tell what happened first, which is guy smoking
Right.
cigarette, then guy looks at the time, then the car comes. So that
Right.
you know the order of events.
Right. Exactly. And there's one more, which is this right here.
Yeah, character art's very cool.
When I do this can apply to animation and live action. A director will come to me and like, look, I'm just going to use an example for, let's say, The Punisher. You know, this guy's really medium belt. He's a mercenary, just came back from Iraq. He's disturbed, but now he's out for justice because, you know, the system's got him wrong. Okay, so how do you do this? And why is this important? Well, because when they take this, they're going to use this to cast what actor they want to play this film, because now they have visually what this guy's going to look like and how this guy's going to look like and what weapons he's going to have. And it really helps. And it also helps in animation. But it's cool. It's pretty cool to do this because we're kind of curious to see what character is going to end up playing this.
Right. I think also it helps for the costume guy because he's not, in other words, this guy's not wearing sort of standard issue
Right.
khaki wear. You know, it's kind of his own uniform that he's kind of created for himself.
Right. Is it lycra? Does it have this? Does it have knee pads? All these things really are into consideration because you have to think about, it's got knee pads? Is there zippers? All these things that the costume designer needs to understand.
Exactly. And I think also the other thing is the guy that's doing the haircut and the makeup and so forth, so they know that you're looking for, you know, a specific look on the face, you know, very clean cut, you know, no facial hair,
Right. You know, and this is like another one, you know, when you've got, these soldiers.
Well, these are from the future. So in reality, we don't,
right.
You have to actually figure out what the future sort of looks like. Like, what's the helmet look like? What's the weaponry look like?
Right. And that goes on my end where I have to do my research on how does the shell case, you know, the bullets, how does the walkie-talkie, where's the name badge, and that's all the stuff you need to figure out. Does he have gloves? Does he have, you know, does he have any body armor? You know, is he a soldier? Is he actually a policeman? Can he go out in the field? All these are things that you got to really put together because that's what he wants. He wants a guy in the street that protects the citizens, but it's light armor. You know what I mean?
Right. It's not this, and also it's meant to. So this is a different outfit than somebody that's fully put into heavy armor, so much so that he can't even move and doesn't quite even look human anymore.
Right.
Any questions? If you have any questions that we haven't answered yet, please send an email to nancy.fulton@yahoo.com or click on the QA button at the bottom. Click on the QA button on your screen. And let me go ahead and I'm going to go check my email. So excuse me while I look distracted.
No problem. I'll be here.
All right, cool. Hold on a second. All right. So I guess one question we have is whether or not you have sort of do you usually bill by the day or do you bill by the project, or how do you usually handle the financial aspects of
That's a good question, Nancy. If a client comes to me and says, you know what, I need 30 boards, and he doesn't need me on set, I'll bill him per panel.
Right.
So I'll say it's X amount per panel. Time frame, okay, since I've only got 2 projects this week, you're looking at maybe Monday the latest in your hands. Perfect. I need the deadline's next Friday. Got it. If I'm called by a director and the director needs me on set on next Monday, my rate is a day rate rather than per panel.
Right, that makes sense. Because they're basically taking up your day. Do me a favor and at the top of the screen, click on where it says stop screen sharing.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, we're too small. There we go.
Okay.
So, all right, let's go. So, and do you usually, how do you usually break up payment? Do you usually do something to start so you know that they're serious and then set up payment dates along the way? Or do you go ahead and you want it all up front because in escrow, or like how do you usually handle money?
No, it's normal. I'll send them over my contract, which just outlines my procedure. It's very simple. There's nothing hidden there. It's pretty straightforward. I get assigned that. This is what I need from you to make my job easier. So don't say I didn't tell you. It's all in the contract. This is what I need to make my job easier, and then half the deposit. So if they want 30 or 40 boards, I'll charge them per panel. Here, it's X amount. I need half of that, and the remainder upon completion.
Right. Now, the other thing, does your agreement work on the basis of the people owning all of the artwork? In other words, is it a work for hire deal, or do you do
work for hire?
Okay, good. So you don't. So and that's true even on graphic novels and so forth, or do you do a separate deal?
No, there's two ways you can go about it. It's work for hire, or if you want the original artwork, then you're looking at a little bit more on the normal rate on top of that. So let's just say hypothetically, if a graphic novel costs $300 per page, full color, and you want the originals, okay, so there's going to be an X amount on top of that because now I'm giving you the originals.
Right. And so I think we should explain to people. So if you guys are aware, let's say that you knew Dr. Seuss, the guy, Theodore Wise or whatever his name is. So Dr. Seuss. Well, Dr. Seuss did, created his books, which were The Cat in the Hat and so forth. And so the original artwork for The Cat in the Hat, he retained the rights to. So he actually owned the ability to sell the actual original painting of The Cat in the Hat. So, and that artwork, obviously is worth many hundreds of thousands of dollars now because it was The Cat in the Hat. So a lot of artists retain the original artwork not because they want to be able to reproduce the book that you've bought from them, but because they want to be able to sell, it's part of their body of work as an artist, and they want to be able to, at some point in the future, be able to sell off original artwork. And the reason that this is kind of important and has become more important over the years is, if you think back to the original storyboard artists, the original comic book artists that worked on things like Spider-Man or Superman or whatever, they didn't get paid very much for their work. I mean, they got sort of, as he's described, they got paid by the panel or they got paid by the book or whatever, and they're not going to get any residuals because that's not usually how graphic artists, and it's too complicated keeping track of all that money, like getting royalties paid and so forth. So those artists didn't get to actually hold on to their artwork or original artwork. They didn't retain the rights, but it meant that they didn't have the opportunity, as Dr. Seuss did, to be able to sell the original Spider-Man drawing even as a work of art.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that a lot of graphic artists these days will say, you can have the right, you own the artwork and you have the right to reproduce it, but I'm retaining the physical object, the physical painting that I created, I'm retaining.
Right.
Because I want to have the right to sell the signed original.
Right.
Cool. So let's see.
Covered a lot of stuff tonight.
Well, I think it's important because people don't know. So actually, this is kind of I'll read you what this guy said. So Walter Lee says, "Hey, Anthony and Nancy, I'm developing a webcomic now and having a bit of a challenge in use of swear words. I don't swear, but a few of my characters do. What's an acceptable age group? Is it 14 and older for comic books where people swear, or what is the actual age group? Oh, and I work as a storyboard artist in advertising. Your work reminds me so much of Bernie Wrighton, not the style, but the feel. I hope that's a compliment."
Very cool. Yeah, it's actually a nice compliment. Yeah, I would say 14 and over. It's a fine line because if it's actually geared toward adults, you want to make sure it says adults. So you're not going to give it to your kids and they're now saying swear words. I mean, you want to make sure that, hey, this is for adults. It's not for kids. I think it's 14 or 18 and over. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think if there's any swear words, you can have.
I think it's 18 and over, right?
Yeah, I think if it's got swear words and any kind of sexual stuff, but once that you're past that point, anything goes. So I think what sometimes people do when there's swear words is they just put in asterisks, or they don't use the actual swear words, but they write down, like they might go F asterisk CK. In other words, they would make it so that, because that makes it more acceptable to parents. In other words, it's not X-rated then. It's something
Right.
that I think you might want to avoid using any swear words if you're targeting anyone under the age of 18. The other thing to be aware of is that when you're putting together stuff that's got those elements, that's 18 and over, that's adult, it actually makes it more difficult to market. Like if I run a press release, it's actually an interesting story. If I run a press release for a romance novel and it's kind of racy, so I call it erotica. Okay, well, there's a whole bunch of people that aren't going to carry it, and there's some press release sites that won't carry it because they basically consider it X-rated. So whereas they'll carry romance, so you need to make, and the same is true for comic books, particularly because they target children. So you want to make sure that you never even get close to that line where you're going to get your stuff blackballed, because a lot of times they don't just like get rid of your stuff. They blackball, like Amazon will just go, no, you try to sell porn to children, we're done. It's like, but I didn't. And it's like, well, this was too racy. It's like, the first notice you get is when they pull you from the store.
Yeah.
And take all
and I've had that where I just won't do anything pornographic on my end regarding graphic novel, or not graphic novels, it's just anything porn, because you can kind of get put into that field where it's like, okay, now he's doing this.
Right.
I just want to stick with villains and action. That's what I do, and
And it's funny because I think it's true for most writers and most artists. I mean, you can draw anything in your life and anything you've ever imagined, or you can write anything you've ever imagined. But it's tricky because you have to figuring out what to release, which is one of the reasons why people come up with pseudonyms. In other words, the very famous people, very famous artists will often write under two different names, specifically because they want to have two different brands.
Right.
And people don't realize that that's an option, or that's why people do it.
Right.
So Little, someone named Hello Little, Little asks, how many images do you prepare for a pitch deck on average?
Good question. Wow, that's really a good question. That was another topic I wanted to talk about. 10 to 20. 20 being maximum. Max.
Actually, you can go too far that's the thing. Pitch books that get pitch decks that are too boring or show too much make you not want to buy the book or buy the project.
Right.
It's like go ahead.
I would do 10 simply because you just want to grab them. If you do too much, they're just going to get bored. Like, okay, all right, where's the punch? Where's the punch in this? I want to understand. You know what I mean? It's almost like when you do a pitch to Viacom. It's just like if you don't get their attention the first 30 seconds, forget it. Goodbye.
Yeah. More is not better. Well, I think the same is true when you go to the movie. How many times you've gone to the movie and the first few scenes of a new coming movie, you thought, wow, I really want to see that, and they went too long. I hate that.
Right. Exactly.
So you feel like you saw the movie and you're like,
yeah.
You had my $15 for about 15 seconds there, man.
Right.
So one of the things that I never ask people to do is specify prices in advance. But somebody's asking what your average costs are for black and white and color. And the reason I don't ask people is because, the video is going to be around for a long time, and what it is today is not what it's going to be tomorrow. So would you like people just to email you?
Email me. And I only do that not because it's just I'm competing with other storyboarders, and I don't want to go ahead and say, oh, this is so much, and then they're like, okay, I'm going to lower more. I do professional work, and it's just I do really good what I do. So email me directly, and I'd be more than happy to go ahead and disclose that.
Well, and I really do think, what it is this year is not what it is next year. I tell you, man, one time I used to have this client. I was a young girl, and I was just starting out, and I did a job for him for I don't know, it was like not very much money, like per hour, whatever. Long and short of it is the guy liked it a lot. I really did good work for him. Okay, well, that guy went and told 50 other people, and he told them the price that I was working with at that time. And you're like, dude, so they would always get mad when the price was twice as high. And I'm like, okay, that was 3 years ago. I did that deal, man. I'm not selling that price. I don't know what they do. I hate
and and on that note, there are exceptions. Because I know, when was it? It was like in 2011. Long story short, I'm not going to mention the director, but she had a really well-known actress on there. And I'm like, okay. So are there certain projects, if you don't have all the funding, I'm like, okay, I'll give you this amount just because I want to attach my name to this because I think it's cool. We showed up the meeting. She's there. We talked about it, so it's actually really legitimate. Okay, we'll go ahead and do this. You know, I'm interested in this because I know the potential this is going to happen.
Right.
You know
do.
what I mean?
I think that.
But I won't do that for everybody. It depends on a per case basis. So if I got a director, you know, he says, "Hey, I got John Travolta on this." You know what I mean? Okay, but I don't have the budget for all the storyboards. What can you do for me? Okay, let's sit down and we can talk about it. And it's a per case. You know what I mean? Because I'd like to attach my name to that film.
Well, and I think also the other thing is that you also kind of get more rights on that project too. If you create a pitch deck for a film that never gets made,
right?
You know, and you never got paid for it, it's kind of like, well, it's kind of my pitch deck actually, because you never paid me anything. It's different if you paid me something.
Right.
Let's see. Someone asks, what's the difference between a comic and a graphic novel? Can you give some examples of the differences?
Yeah, a graphic novel, you're actually getting the full story. It's a one shot. Unless it's actually a series. And I mean, as an example, Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. So you're getting the full book. The first book you're going to get is the first issue. In a comic book, it's broken up to series. You're going to get cliffhangers. So if you got the vampires hunting, you know, these zombies, you know, which is 14, I think 17 pages. On the last page, you're going to get a cliffhanger for the next issue. So it's broken up into different series. You know what I mean? And you have the time to go ahead for the next issue. You can change things or change the issue down six issues down the road. You can say, well, let's twist it now. Let's make the vampire now. He's the killer. And the zombies actually good people. So you can kind of tweak it. In a graphic novel, you don't have that. It's the straight before.
Right. So a graphic novel is like a finished story, whereas a comic is a serial.
Right.
It is like a serial story.
Right.
Let's see. And I think Jason's asking, what's the process for creating a graphic novel? And I think one of the things we just talked in it, because you stepped away for a second, but is it script to sketches to storyboard? And is that how you usually do it? I think what you mentioned is for you, it's sort of
the shot list,
sort of concept art, concept art, figuring out what sort of the
right before anything. Style. Yeah, before anything.
Right, agreeing on style, agreeing on settings and so forth, and sort of era and all that, and then it's basically going to a shot list, and then it's sort of laying out the page, starting to do the drawings and laying out the pages.
Right.
Right. Do you work a lot with Anonymous asks, do you work a lot with the DP or director on set, or even not on set? So
I rarely work with the DP. 99% of the times as a director.
Right. And it says, how do you not cross the line while explaining and talking to them? Is it okay to do storyboards on actual sketchbooks or papers without the computer? You know,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When I did this video, there really wasn't no time to go ahead on the computer and tighten it up. It was really bring a sketchbook and we're going to go ahead because you've got 2 days to go ahead and wrap this up and we're going to start shooting this video. So yeah, you have to really make sure your pencils are sharpened and get ready to rock and roll because it's going to be a long day.
Right, and that's what you said is the fact that you're actually sort of there to pre-visualize for the lighting guys and the stuntmen. Like you're there so that the director can talk to you and communicate to you what he wants, so he has something that he can hand to other people.
Right.
So it's going to be hand drawn and it's going to be fast.
Once you have the storyboards, then the next stage you're not wasting the budget. Everybody's on set. Here's the storyboard. Here's the blueprint. This is what we're going to shoot today. Oh, okay, I got it.
Right, and it's something that while they're setting up the scene, the director can talk to you about what's going to happen in the next scene. So he gives the director a way to not just stand there and watch people set up lights.
Right.
Right. So let's see. I think that pretty much. Let me think. Make sure there's like so many places to look for questions. I'm like a little baffled. All right. There's a couple of let's see. So I want to just take a couple of minutes to talk briefly about the fact of sort of how the process works in terms of paying for things like storyboards. So when you're if you're your first step in development is always to acquire the screenplay and make sure you have the rights to it, which means you've optioned it or you've written it yourself or you've written a story and then paid a writer to turn it into a script. The next step is going to be usually getting coverage for that. So you make sure you've got the final story and you're not going to be adding and deleting characters and crap. And then the thing that you're going to do after that is you're probably going to want to do film analytics, so that if you've decided that you're going to do, the romantic, prehistoric TV show, the romantic prehistoric movie, you realize that not ever has that ever actually made money, that no one has ever made money on romantic prehistoric stories. I was going to say, used to be I would always use cowboy science fiction stories, but now we have Westworld. I think it's going to do fine. But generally speaking, that's not been a good genre.
Right.
So you would do film analytics. Anyway, so at that point, after you've sort of gone through that process and you know what you want to shoot, that's when you would usually go to someone like Anthony to create the graphic art you need to sell the project, to create some of the graphic art and images that you use to sell the project in your storyboards. And it would all through storyboards that you incorporate into your business plan and into your pitch book. And it would also be, and in your budget that you get people to approve, you would, if you needed to have more storyboards done, then you would put that into the actual budget. The reason that matters is when you set aside money at the beginning of a project to pay for the part where you're getting what you need to sell the script, that's called development. And you get paid back for the money that you invest in development when you get funded. So if you spend $100,000, so film is a weird world. You may have to tell the funder that you have $100,000 of your own money you're putting into a project, and you may have already spent $100,000 developing the content. But the thing is that when you actually get the money, you can issue yourself money for the $100,000 that you put in on development, which would cover the amount you spent on storyboards. And then subsequently, you would actually start work with somebody like Anthony in pre-production. So you would give it to him and he would start work while you were getting together the locations, while you were finishing up your casting and all of those kinds of things, so that by the time you actually got to the shoot date, you would have the storyboards that you need to start, and the designs and the characters, all of the character stuff that you need in order to start creating the characters and creating the pieces, so you could actually produce the project quickly and cost effectively when the day came. The reason I mention that is a lot of people don't know when that there's sort of two different times when you're hiring the graphic artist. The other thing is, during that same time period, when the production's going on, you might hire Anthony to actually go ahead and produce a comic book that you want to sell when the movie comes out, so that when people, or you could do it in theory, you could actually decide that you want to pay for book development, so you can start selling the book, and then subsequently hire Anthony to do additional artwork when the time comes for production, if it's not already covered in the book.
Real quick, Nancy, because I just noticed one of the questions here. Real quick, if there is a director or a person who wants to put a horror flick into a graphic novel, and they want to know basically just a general idea how much it costs, it can cost from $1,000, which is 5 pages, or it can cost up to 20 grand plus, depending. I mean, give or take. But that's normally what you're looking at. But if you're wanting to get something to put together quickly, nice and done, you could do something for $1,000, which is 5 pages. Which
is again the kind of artwork that you might want to put into a pitch deck, or as a proposal that you're going to have you're going to give to a publisher,
right?
Or to somebody who's going to invest in the production of a book. Anyway, I sort of just ran through sort of the issues when it comes to budgeting for those of us, because a lot of people attending this event are people that are working to produce projects, or they're writer producers, they're filmmakers, they're actor producers. So I want to make sure we talked about the different costs and the different times when you would actually hire someone like Anthony to work with you. Another thing I wanted to mention to you is that, and if you're, another thing I wanted to mention to you, in case this is confusing to you, on December 3rd, on December 3rd, if you go check the meetup that you joined, you'll find that on December 3rd we have an event coming up that you can attend to learn how to develop a project. It talks about, you'll have a chance to spend a whole day walking through the development process. And this is one of the things we'll be touching on during that process. If you sign up right now, it'll cost you $25 to attend the whole day event. If you decide to wait until next Monday to sign up, you're going to be spending about twice that much. And if you wait all the way to December 3rd, you're going to be spending $100. So the only reason I mention that is to make sure that people are looking for answers about how to actually develop their projects. And I've been covering all of the pieces piecemeal, but I want to put it all together in one place and make it possible to actually walk people through the whole process in context. And I wanted to make sure that one of the most important aspects of the development process, I think, is actually working with the storyboard artist. And the reason is because it translates into making the project easier to sell, and it translates into making the project faster to shoot. And I think most people in the groups, we have some people who have produced multiple projects, but usually they're they're going up in terms of price. So the larger your project gets, the more important it is to have the storyboards. It can be absolutely, you cannot afford to try to explain something that these people don't understand on shoot days. They don't have time. And the thing is that, it's everything from the set dressing to the character design to the action sequences to the, what are we actually trying to put on camera here, or what's in the foreground, what's in the background, and you just don't have time to convey that information, and the storyboards save you that. The other thing is you never have more time to compose your ideas than you do when you're working with the storyboard artist before the shoot. And then once you're actually at the shoot, you don't have the time, and that's going to mean everybody else is making decisions, so you're not going to get what you want. There's a reason why Hitchcock storyboarded every scene. And it doesn't mean that you're limited so that you have to shoot that. It just means that you have the option of shooting it. If you get to set and you find something better, shoot that. But the point is that you don't have the freedom of being well prepared unless you work with a storyboard artist, particularly for complex scenes. And people sometimes say, well, I don't have enough money to afford a storyboard artist. If you don't have enough money, that's when you need the storyboard guy, because the storyboard guy saves you money.
It's a lot more cheaper than
he's the guy that you don't get rid of. You
right.
get, because it's going to cost you so much more to try to work without him. So, is there anything that sort of you wanted to add to that, Anthony?
No, I would just say that anybody that wants to get into film or into comic books or graphic novels, really think of it basic. Just finish your script. Gather some reference material if you're going to be speaking to me of the style you want, the overall, whether it's film, or whether it's, if you want a McFarlane type look or whatever, or cute and cuddly. So when we talk, we're on the same page and we're able to go ahead and shoot back and forth. Okay, so this is going to be pretty intense. This is going to take, X amount of time. I've got, X amount of, jobs on the line right now. So let's just kind of break this up, weekly. I'm really flexible as far as working with these clients, because the worst thing you want to do is rush something and then becomes a waste. And then you're the one, oh, you gave me this. It takes time. You're not flipping burgers with this.
And one of the other things you'd mentioned to me is you're thinking about actually starting to hire people to help you out in terms of things like coloring. So you would do the original artwork, and then you'd hire some extra hands to do things like to do the coloring, or to put in the patterns, or to do the lettering and so forth, because that kind of work, you've worked with other people where you've had people to do that for you. And in this particular case, it's something that, so if you have a big project, don't be afraid to reach out. He's busy, but he's growing to the point where he's got to be able to, he's bringing people on board anyway, because he has to. And so at some point you just go, I'm not going to write all those little letters.
You know what, Nancy? There was a George Marker was actually
right, regarding marketing. Yeah,
I think it really depends on you. If you go with the publishing, they're going to want to be able to go ahead and have a little bit of control. If you do it yourself, publishing, you have all the bells and whistles to do what you want and how you feel, and what you don't really have this limit. You know what I mean? And that's really the difference. You lose your rights. Not all your rights. If you go through publishing, they're going to want to tweak things. If you it's just like when you do a film,
Right. Exactly. And I mentioned in passing, one of the things that we cover a lot is marketing. I'm going to share my screen really briefly. So if you go to Nancy Fulton videos, I have videos and support materials for a lot of stuff that we've done in the past, and I have something specific for marketing. So I'll just quickly show it to you.
Okay.
So you see the option here. So I've just shared my screen. If you're looking at the screen, see where it says creating video ads to very cost effectively promote books, performances, products, etc. This shows how to actually take artwork and turn it into advertisements. And the reason that I mentioned that is that you can run those video ads for a penny per view to 10 pennies per view nationwide or in LA, and you can on YouTube and on Facebook. And more importantly, you can target who they're shown to. You can make it so that you're targeting people who are fans of comic book art, or people who are fans of, or people that work at the studios if you want. Like if you want to, take your concept art for your comic book and show it to people that are working at CAA or Warner Brothers or any of these other places, you can actually do that.
Yeah,
So,
you could do a digital pitch. You can have something in the back
right.
of your sheet while you're talking about it. Then
Right.
that's another way.
Right. So the point is that this right here is a video that actually covers that particular topic. It's step by step. The only reason I mention it is that we do actually talk a lot about marketing. And there's a couple of other topics on here about marketing as well. So if you go to Nancy Fulton videos, you can find it. You can find some of them on YouTube, but not all of them. This is like one you can't find. Anyway, I'll only mention it just so that you know it's available. If you have any questions and you need quick advice, you can always email me, and I'll almost, if it's something that takes 5 minutes or less, I'll always answer for free. So when you get stuck, you should always, I want to be the first person that you reach out to if you get stuck, always. And because I think one of the things about the entertainment industry is a lot of times people think knowledge, like they tend not to share information, because if you know something, if they know something you don't know, it gives them a competitive advantage. But I think the problem with that is it makes it so we as a group don't actually enjoy a lot of financial success. It might take you a long time to solve a problem if somebody doesn't give you some quick help. So you should always reach out if you need a question answered at nancy.fulton@yahoo.com. Anthony, how can people reach you?
You can email me at Mr. Sturmas at gmail.com. That's actually on my website too. It's mrsturmas@gmail.com. Be more than happy to answer any questions. I'm pretty good as far as replying quickly. You can ask me anything if you need help or whatever. Be happy to sit and chat with you. And then once we connect, I'd be more than happy to go and connect with you on the phone.
Great. And so is it okay? I'm going to, with your permission, Anthony, I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a video. And then I'm going to make it available to people after the fact. And I'll include your phone, the contact information and stuff that you gave me on the video. So that makes it'll make it easy for people to actually find that information. So again, if you didn't get all of your questions answered, you can send them to me at email at nancy.fulton@yahoo.com, and I'll forward them to Anthony, or answer them directly if they're from me. Remember, you can always go to Nancy Fulton meetups to find out sort of what's going on. And I'm always available if you need help or support. And I look forward to seeing you. We have a bunch of live events coming up. I look forward to seeing you at them. And thank you very much, Anthony, for taking the time to talk with us tonight. I think it was very valuable to see the kind of artwork that you create and hear how you actually work with both people creating graphic novels and people that are working in production. It was really very cool.
Yeah. It was my pleasure. I hope I was able to help up-and-coming directors or people on the film or whatever to go ahead and if I'm able to be a part of that, it'd be great. But I hope I gave some really informative stuff here, because a lot of the stuff was really trial by error. I mean, a lot of stuff I didn't know. I was like, I graduated and I got my feet wet, and but it's a hard business. But if you really put everything you got into it, you can really, really do some really cool stuff, man. It's cool.
Yeah, it's very hip. I think it's like success has everything to do with planning and preparation. That's the thing. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, man.
Okay. Take care, Nancy. Thank you for everybody being online. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.